Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sketchy Legends. You might notice a huge increase in the quality of my audio, and that's thanks to my wonderful husband, who has given me a fantastic microphone as an anniversary present. Hopefully this makes your listening experience that much better, and before I know it, it'll make my editing and listening to my own voice a little bit more palatable. This week, I feel as though I need to give you guys a little bit of a warning. A disclaimer, really. This is a true crime story that gets really dark and really unsettling. Like most true crime stories, it involves death and tragedy. However, it might make you a little bit more uncomfortable than your average episode of Forensic Files. With that being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Sketchy Legends. In the fall of 1989, a group of teenagers took the sand dunes of southern Idaho, and they had driven past a dryer drum that they hadn't really thought of being out of place, for there was a landfill nearby. Upon leaving for the evening, the teenagers' truck had gotten stuck in the sand. However, a kind neighbor that lived less than a mile away offered his and his young son's assistance in removing their truck from the sand. Soon after he had helped the teenagers become unstuck, his very own truck, unfortunately, had gotten stuck in the sand. Since he lived so close by, he decided that him and his son would just walk home for the evening since it was almost the boy's bedtime. When they had started the trek back home, the boy discovered the dryer drum and ran over to peek inside. At first, he wasn't quite sure what he was looking at because his flashlight was fairly dim. But once his eyes had adjusted, he quickly pulled his son away before he saw, insisting that it was time for bed. After tucking his son in and making sure the boy was asleep, he called the police to tell them about discovering the potential body of a child. On November 17th of 1989, Robert Boesiger and his son were walking home in Rupert, Idaho, because their truck had gotten stuck in the sand dunes near the landfill. They were the unfortunate souls to have found something horrific, something that no one would have ever expected to stumble across in a small town in rural Idaho. After quickly shooing his son away from the immediate location and safely back home in bed, Boesiger contacted the Minidoka County Police to tell them about his discovery of the body. The police showed up to Boesiger's house around 9 p.m., where they were then escorted to the location of the body. Boesiger pointed out that it was in the dryer drum. The police peered inside and were shocked. A small, charred, and unrecognizable shape lay at the bottom of the barrel. It was almost unrecognizable as a human because it had been so badly mutilated. They quickly closed off the area to the public, sent the body off for autopsy, and began to investigate. Upon the initial autopsy, it was discovered that the body was in fact that of a baby girl, either Caucasian or of Hispanic descent, and no older than 3 weeks old. Her body was mutilated beyond recognition, estimated to have been burned up to 5 days prior. One of her arms were missing from the shoulder down, as well as the hand from the opposite side. She had been disemboweled with all of her organs from her abdomen removed, leaving her lungs and a portion of the upper heart chamber behind. After being clothed, she was laid on her back at the bottom of the dryer barrel, doused in gasoline, and set on fire. At the time, the police were unable to tell what the cause of death was. However, when the lungs were looked at more closely, it was obvious that the body had been afflicted by some sort of pulmonary disease, possibly pneumonia. They were unable to tell the exact cause of death because there was so much trauma to the body. However, they were able to confirm that she had at least died before she had been burned. Their best estimation was that the child had died from her untreated pneumonia. Investigators were unable to find any sort of birth or hospital records that related to her, so from that point on, she was given the name Baby X. The discovery of Baby X sent an uproar through the town of Rupert and its surrounding areas. During this time, there was an alarming uprise of accusations of Satanism sweeping across America, more specifically in Texas and Idaho. Immediately, everyone besides investigators had been convinced that this was work of Satanists, claiming that they had seen bodies of mutilated animals that had been sacrifices from cultists gathering in remote areas of Idaho to conduct rituals. After the body of baby X was found, people started to gather and almost conduct literal witch hunts. Locals had started reporting their neighbors and co-workers to the police, stating that they had seen them in black robes and taking mysterious trips into the woods at night. Others were paying more attention to pregnant women, more so that of single pregnant women, stating that they were Satanists who were getting pregnant just to give birth and make sacrifices to their dark lord. There was even an anonymous letter that was sent to the police department that listed 116 individuals, including the prosecutor and judges, of being part of a satanic cult that was masquerading as a Baptist church in order to conduct their rituals, hiding in plain sight. Investigators had tried their best to convince the public that ritualistic killings were not what had taken place, that most likely the cause of baby X's death was that of a sick individual that had snapped, or of a scared new mother whose baby had died of pneumonia, but were afraid to bring any attention to themselves by coming forward with a dead child, therefore burning the body in order to get rid of the evidence. However, these potential explanations did not give the general public any peace of mind. The investigation had started to slow in the spring of 1990. The police already had little evidence to go off of from the beginning, and now the well was starting to run dry. That was until a call that the lead investigator had received from the police in Barstow, California, which reinvigorated the investigation. They told the Rupert police about an alleged abuse victim that they had been questioning, a 9-year-old boy given the pseudonym of Timothy to protect his identity from the public. Timothy claimed that he had been present at the ritualistic killing of a baby girl, and that his parents had made him take part in several rituals. The police found this odd, however, it all clicked into place when they realized that Timothy's parents were from southern Idaho, more specifically, the Rupert area. The police recognized the story, and immediately after learning this detail, contacted the Rupert police. Timothy was questioned several times and evaluated by a child psychologist. Initially, he refused to talk, but would draw pictures of a barrel, a fire, and a baby. Though it took a while for the boy to speak up, he finally started to talk about his home life. Timothy had stated to the investigator, "They put me on a table with a Bible," he started to say. "The devil is there. They pray to the devil. The devil makes these people hurt me. They hurt me so bad. They sacrifice all animals. They even sacrifice babies." He was then asked where they get the babies. "I don't know," he said. "The babies don't have any clothes on. They just put them on the table, and pretty soon the devil makes a fire, and they are on fire. It's a sacrifice. It's in the real Bible." He was then asked what the meaning of the sacrifice was. He stated, "It means you burn them and you pray to the Bible and you give them to the devil." Timothy's account of the death of baby X was extremely vivid and accurate in the eyes of the autopsy. However, the more often Timothy repeated his account, the more it began to warp and change. After being evaluated by many child psychologists, investigators were told that the boy had several learning disabilities and was not communicating at the level that a 9-year-old child should be able to. His vocabulary was limited, and at times his statements were indistinguishable. With the outcome of the boy's evaluation, his statement was deemed inadmissible, and his statement could not be used in the official case of baby X. Although there were signs of trauma, with Timothy knowing many things a young child should never be exposed to, the police did not have enough evidence to remove the boy from his home, so he was returned to his parents. The investigators know that Timothy knows something about the case. His descriptions were all too accurate in the beginning, and there may have been something at play to try to make the boy unusable in court. To this day, the case of baby X is still unresolved. Her body was placed in a casket surrounded by concrete and steel to avoid any sort of tampering, and was buried in a Rupert cemetery, marked with a gravestone that read nothing but "Unknown Baby." I hope you enjoyed watching this week's episode of Sketchy Legends. I had a lot of fun. Well, maybe fun isn't the appropriate word to use for this story. Anyway, I found researching the topic very intriguing. I got to dive deep into articles that were written about it in the early 90s and was catching up on some brief news segments that aired on the 25th anniversary of the case. Unfortunately, the case of Baby X is still unresolved to this day, though it was confirmed that she had died due to untreated pneumonia. However, I did stumble across a blog post written in 2017 by someone who claims to be a psychic medium who was asked by an investigator to help solve the cold case. There are some very interesting details in it, as well as a very conspiratorial twist that I find very intriguing, that talks about how this could potentially be linked to many Indigenous women and children who have gone missing in the past 30 years. I chose not to include it in the main story because I couldn't find any more information on the subject and couldn't verify if this individual indeed had been helping on the cold case. However, if you're interested in reading the blog post, which I highly recommend you do, I'll leave a link to it down in the description box below. While you're down there, you'll see the listing for my other social medias. Head on over to my Twitter and my Instagram at j_dfiore_art to see more of my artwork and updates on future episodes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe. I promise you won't regret it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Sketchy Legends.